If you haven't seen the movie, the saddest part about this movie, which is why I didn't want to watch it. I thought it was going to make me cry, and it did. In fact, a few of you have told me that it made you cry as well. If you watch Wonder and don't cry, I think we ought to check on you. You probably ought to talk to someone. But it's more than just sad. It's inspirational and it's hopeful, and it really does catch you. It catches you off guard in a way. It caught me off guard because I knew about Augie. Augie is this kid with a syndrome called Treacher's-Collins syndrome. And because of that, he's had numerous surgeries. He's faced all kinds of jeers and stares and the feeling that he's embarrassing other people or causing other people to feel unsure about how to deal with him. How do you face a world that doesn't know how to face you back? But what's so interesting about the movie is the depths and the layers to it. Today we're going to talk about this gal right here. Her name is Via. Via, or Olivia, her parents call her Via, but her full name was Olivia. She's the sister to Augie. And what we find out is that she's going through all kinds of stuff on her own. She's dealing with her own challenges and her own emotions. And when she comes back from school, when she comes back to school from the summer break, she's having to deal with the fact that her once best friend, Miranda, is no longer speaking to her. That she's no longer returning her text messages, that she's not sitting with her at lunch. And so today I wanna focus on an interesting subplot that happens between Via and Miranda. This is Miranda right here. I gotta be honest with you, when I watched this movie and I first found out about the way Miranda was treating Via, I did not like Miranda. So many of you watched this movie and maybe you felt the same way. It's amazing how easy it is to not like her. But the beauty of this subplot is that her story, Miranda's story, is actually told from her perspective, and it adds layers and layers and layers to the way we can understand her. And as it turns out, learning about other people's fears and wants and hurts and joys and backgrounds and pasts, it actually can make everything those people do make more sense. As the school year goes on, all of the characters grow in their maturity and their relationship with others. But as for Miranda and Via, they were best of friends, and then something has changed. All of a sudden, after school gets started back, they're not talking to each other. And their relationship is broken, and I felt anger toward Miranda. I don't know that I would have said I hated Miranda, because I try to not say I hate people, but everything I knew about her made me not like her. Everything I knew about this girl made me think, how rude of her to treat this girl like that. How rude of her to be the kind of person that is friends one year and then the next year it's like, I don't want to be friends anymore. And this is so unlike the way middle school and high school girls act to each other. That's the part that surprised me most, is I thought, why? No, we all know this is part of middle school and high school and college and being an adult really is, how do you deal with friends that all of a sudden are turning their back on you? How do you deal with friends that you no longer feel close to, or feels like they've moved on or they've chosen somebody else over you? If you've ever been through a broken relationship, whether it's a friend or whether it's even someone in your family or maybe somebody you were even married to, you know what it's like to try to feel something positive for them, to try to feel even kindness toward them or love toward them. No, see, everything I knew about her made me not like her. But as the movie moved on, what I realized is that everything I knew about her made me not like her, but I didn't know everything about her. I thought I knew her, but I realized, I don't really know everything that's going on. And the more I learned about what's going on, the more I was like, okay, I get it. And it's amazing how Hollywood can do that to us. They can make us fall in love with the villains, right? Do you have a villain that you love? Is it Walter White from Breaking Bad, the high school math teacher that's all of a sudden cooking up meth? I mean, it's a horrible situation. But you find yourself almost cheering for him. You find yourself rooting for him. Some of you love Darth Vader, and I will never understand that. But you're like, well, once you realize his past, and once you know the way he was raised and what happened in his childhood and the way he grew up, then you start to actually find yourself cheering for him Or maybe it's Kylo Ren for you that you started cheering for. Some of you, this blows my mind, some of you love the Joker. I mean, the Joker is, somebody just amened that. It's like the first time they've ever talked in church, right? Some of you love the idiosyncrasies of the Joker and the way he laughs and the way he smiles. And then I watched the Lego Batman movie and I realized that the Joker really just wanted a relationship with Batman. I didn't know that, but the whole time, that's all he wanted was a friendship, was just let's be arch rivals, let's be arch nemesis, just call me your number one rival and I'll be cool. And Batman just couldn't do it. But we find ourselves actually liking sometimes the villains in our life because we've learned more about them. And what I've learned is the opposite is actually true, that sometimes it's just easy to throw rocks at something I don't understand, right? Sometimes it's easier to just criticize something that I don't even really understand. And now in the world of social media, you don't have to have majored in it. You don't have to have experience in it. You don't have to have written anything about it. You can have an opinion about everything you want, and you can throw a rock at something you don't even understand. In fact, it's easy to throw rocks at someone I don't understand. This is what's really difficult. This is what can sometimes feel challenging when we're on the other side of it. But we all know that people are easy to hate from far away, right? People are easy to dislike when we're removed, when we're far away, when we're not close up. Now, see, for this week, I want to talk about this quote that is at the very end of this movie called Wonder. Oh, there it is. I thought it wasn't going to turn. That would have been a big surprise. There we go. This quote goes like this. There's been different authors, different writers that have that get attributed this quote to, but this is the quote: "Be kind, for everyone is fighting a hard battle." This is one of the things I learned from Wonder. Be kind, because everyone is fighting a hard battle. And in case you want the Cliff Notes version, or you're already falling asleep, or maybe you're tuning out after you've already tuned in and you're already doing some Amazon shopping, then here's the big idea. Here's the big news for today. When we understand the battle someone is fighting, we can understand how to love someone better. When you understand the battle they're fighting, it's way easier to learn how to love them better. But we don't want always to do that, do we? No, I think we all know that our ability to be kind is determined by what we see, by what part of their past we look at, what part of their life we dive into, what part of their story we pay attention to. And the more empathy I have for someone, the more I lean into someone's past and someone's story and someone's battle that they're fighting, the more compassion I can feel for them. Now, for those of you that are not Jesus followers, we say this all the time here, but you're welcome to just pay attention, or you're welcome to tune this out, or you're welcome to apply it and try it. You can try it on, you can check it out, you can do whatever. But if you're a follower of Jesus, this is not an optional thing. This is something we are commanded to do. If you put a fish on the back of your car, this is for you. Or if you put a North Point sticker, or whatever church you're from, if you put one of those stickers on the back of your car, you must yield to let the other person in. You have to do this, okay? And if you don't leave your faith, just take the sticker off. But this is one of the things that Jesus said. One of the things the authors of the New Testament said. He said this, he said, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. The law of Christ, that you would love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, that you would love your neighbor as yourself. This is known as the law of Christ. And he says, when you bear one another's burdens, when you get under somebody else's burden, when you get under someone else's burden and help them carry their burden, you're fulfilling this. And this is a command that we're supposed to do. But what I have found in my life is when I don't understand your burden, when I know nothing about your burden, when I'm unaware of your burden, it's hard to carry your burden. In fact, I can't help you carry your burden until I understand your burden. To put it into your context, you can't help others carry burdens until you understand their burdens. Until you really understand, until you've really done the work to get into, to get underneath, to get behind what's really going on, it's hard to carry it. My hope is that at this point in the message, for those of you that are still paying attention, listening, watching, that you have identified someone in your mind that is difficult to love. My hope is that you've already got a face for today. You've already got somebody in mind that you think, you know what, I will listen and I will try to understand anybody else's battle, but when it comes to this person, I just can't. I can't. And maybe you're already thinking, you know what, you can just stop because I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me to learn more about her past and her busted up childhood and how bad her mom was and how messed up her dad was and how significant all the wounds of her past were, because that's gonna make me excuse what she's doing now, and I'm just not gonna do it. Some of you feel that way. And you have so much hurt, and it's legitimate, and you have so many walls that have been built, and it makes total sense. And anybody else in your situation, in your scenario, it would make sense. Let me just say this. It might be right for you to feel the way you're feeling, but it might not be the healthiest thing for you to do. Today, Jesus is gonna show us another way. He's gonna show us how he would actually like for us to treat other people. And he does it through this party. I like parties. When I was in college, I made it my goal to have more fun sober than anyone else had drunk. And that's not easy to do, okay? But I love parties. I love partying. I love the idea of getting a bunch of people together and having a blast. And that's what makes today fun. Today, the setting of it is at a party. And what I want you to do is, as you look at the characters, there's 3 characters in this story. I want you to figure out, who do you identify with? Which character are you, and are you comfortable with identifying with who you're identifying with? Here's the way the story went down. This is found in Luke 7. Luke, the author of Luke, he followed Jesus' life, chronicled Jesus' life, and he wrote this about this situation that happened. When one of the Pharisees, his name is Simon, we're gonna learn later on, Pharisees, teacher of the law, typically antagonistic toward Jesus. Jesus didn't have a great relationship with them, but this is really cool. Even though Jesus knew they don't really like me, I'm not sure if I can trust them, but he still leaned in. He still had a relationship with this guy. How do we know that? Well, because when one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him at his dinner party, he went to the Pharisee's house and he reclined at the table. In other words, Jesus was like, let's kick it. Like, you wanna kick it? Let's kick it. Like, let's go. Where are we going? Tonight. We're going over to your house, Simon? That's cool. What are you making? You doing ribeye? I'm all in. That's great. Like, we open up a bottle of Weller's? Like, what are we doing? Like, am I allowed to say that in church? I don't know. But let's go. Like, are we having a good time or not? Let's do this. That's basically what Jesus is saying. He's like, let's have a good time tonight. Let's go. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life. She learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, and so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. Now, does that offend you that we don't even know this lady's name? It does offend me a little bit. I mean, if when I meet Luke one day, I want to be like, Luke, why not say and so Michelle in that town, she heard about the party and she dropped by. This woman has a name. You know what I'm saying? But this was so customary in this day to not treat females with dignity and respect, but it's not just the fact that she's female, it's the fact that she's sinful. Luke probably was like, I don't really want to say her name. I don't really want to act like I know who she was. We're pretty sure this lady was a prostitute. And maybe Luke was like, I don't really know what to say about it, but I got to tell you what happened. There was this party. Simon was it was a really awesome party. And this girl shows up and everybody's like, what? I can't believe she's here. And it was customary in this day that somebody who had needs would be able to come to a party like this because they could sit in the back and they could pick up the scraps. It was one of the ways they cared for the poor. And so this lady, she walks into the party. I'm sure the music stopped, and everybody's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's here. But see, she didn't come with the same intentions that everyone else came with. Look at what this lady was doing. Luke tells us that as she stood behind him at his feet, she was weeping. And she began to wet his feet with her tears, and then she wiped him with her hair and kissed them and poured perfume on them. We talk about hair a lot in my family because I have a sister who sells hair product. And thinking about this, I'm like, why did she do that with her hair? That is weird. And some of you are weirded out by that, okay? But you gotta just move past it. You just gotta go with it. In this day, this was a sign of affection. This was a sign of honor, a sign of respect, a sign of dignity, a sign of kindness. Why was she weeping? I mean, he doesn't tell us why she was weeping, but we could guess. I mean, maybe she was weeping because she felt so guilty for what she was doing with her life. Maybe she felt so much shame for the way people looked at her. Maybe she was just feeling the acceptance from Jesus. Maybe his reputation of being a person that treated everyone with dignity and respect. Maybe his reputation of the way he elevated women and elevated outcasts and elevated people that didn't fit social norms. Maybe she heard about that, and maybe she just felt so overwhelmed with gratitude because of the way he looked at her, because of the way he recognized her presence, because of the way he spoke about her. Maybe she just felt overwhelmed. We don't know why she's weeping, but you get the sense that she's at the edge of the table down at his feet, and she is overwhelmed with emotion. And so she takes this expensive jar of perfume that she had come in with and she pours it all over his feet. Most of us have never had perfume as expensive as what she would have had. Maybe you got some truffle oil from Italy that's in your cabinet that's like, $100 a drop or something. Just imagine how crazy that would be if you just poured it all out on this man's feet. Everybody in the room was like, what is she doing? Simon noticed. Unfortunately, Simon, it says he said this to himself. We don't know if he actually said it out loud, or if he just thought it. Either way, not a good idea when you're in the presence of Jesus, because he's about to call you out, And so this is what happened to Simon. So when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, he was trying to keep it private, but Jesus picked it up. He goes, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. Simon's going, this is real. Like one of two things is happening here. Either Jesus is not who he says he is. He claimed he was from heaven. He claimed he was from God. He says that he has the power to forgive people's sins. He's saying, I sit in the seat of God. Well, he must not be, because he doesn't know who this woman is. So he's either not God, or he somehow is missing it today and he doesn't know who this woman is, because if he knew, he wouldn't let her come near him. And to some of you, you can relate, because there's some of you that you walked in today and you thought the alarm was gonna go off because you're in a church. You thought the doors were gonna shake because you know your past and you know your background, and you've just always thought that God is just, that he tolerates you, that he's just not excited about your company. But this is the beauty of one of the things Jesus is trying to teach us. Jesus is the image of the invisible God. He's saying, I get it, God's invisible, but let me show you what he's like. And Jesus is trying to teach us that if you feel like a sinner, if you're watching online today and you felt like I couldn't even walk in a building because I feel so unworthy, here's the great news. God loves sinners. He loves sinners. He sees them and he loves them. And Jesus is trying to help Simon see what he can't see. And so Jesus says to Simon, he says, Simon, I have something to tell you. Simon was like, I oblige. Tell me, teacher, he said. Now, Jesus is actually going to tell a story. So now this is wild, because I started with the movie Wonder, and I'm telling you a story about Jesus, and now Jesus is gonna tell a story. This is like Inception Sunday, okay? We're like in another universe right now. Like so some of you are like, I am having trouble keeping up. Like, is this the movie Wonder? This is not. This is a story that Jesus told within a story, okay? You're smart people. You can pick up what hopefully I'm trying to put down. Track with me on this, okay? Here's what Jesus said. He said, 2 people owed money to a certain moneylender, okay? And one of them owed him 500 denarii. 1 denarii is 1 day's wage. 500 is a lot. The other one only owed him 50. You don't even have to understand denarii, okay? That's not even the point of this. What you have to understand is that there was a little debt, and then there was a debt that was 10 times the size of the little debt. Here's what the moneylender did. Neither of them had the money to pay him back, so he forgave the debts of both. Everybody in the room was like, oh, what? Now, Simon, which of them will love him more? Simon is a smart guy, and he's playing along. He's like, I get it. I see what you're doing, Jesus. And he replies, he said, well, I suppose the one who had the bigger debt forgiven. I love it. He's like, I suppose, like I'll play along with your little game and your little story here, Jesus. I get it. The one who had the bigger debt. Jesus says, you have judged correctly, Jesus said. This word judge is a big deal because Simon was pretty used to sitting in the seat of the judge. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then something huge happens. Jesus is not done with Simon, but he does something incredibly important that you have to notice and pay attention to. He turned toward the woman. He's still talking to Simon, but he turns toward the woman and he says, Simon, do you see this woman? Why is he asking that? He already knows he saw the woman. That's what the whole story is about. That Simon was judging this woman. He gets that. But what is Jesus saying? Do you see this woman? He's going, no, this is deeper. Like there's something underneath this. I mean, I get it. You recognize her. Clearly, we all know that. We all heard you when you said to yourself, well, this guy doesn't know who she is. We know you know, okay? We know you saw her come in. We get that. But do you see her? I mean, like, do you see everything about her, her background, her story? Do you see her life? Do you see the family she grew up in? Do you see her past? Do you see her battle? Do you see the battle that she's fighting, Simon? That's so important because how you see people will determine how you treat people. How you see people will determine the way you deal with them. Do you ever have days where people are just in your way while you're on the road driving? When my wife and I are first dating, she gets some, after a couple months, if she feels more comfortable, she's like, you drive fast. And I'm like, I don't drive fast. I drive with a purpose, okay? I got places to go. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like I'm going somewhere. And other people, I'm always curious. I'm like, you don't seem like you're going anywhere. Like, what's going on, Because let's get to where we're going. Like, that's the point of this, right? And sometimes, this is at my worst. Sometimes when I'm on the road, sometimes when I'm at work, sometimes this happens at work. You ever get so cranked at work, you're like, I'm about to go accomplish something today. Like, I'm gonna do something. Like, I'm gonna get something done. Like, we're gonna make something happen. And then you start interacting with people and you realize, like, these people are in my way. They won't get out of my way. Like, I'm trying to move and they're in my way. Do you ever have that feeling? This is not good, okay? This is like my opportunity to confess. I don't like this about myself. I'm just saying, can you relate? Will you please quit judging me and just act like you relate, okay? Yeah, we all do that. We all know what that's like, and it's terrible. But when you see people as in your way or as less valuable than you, it's only natural that it would affect the way you treat them. So Jesus, again, he's not done with Simon. He's about to flip this on Simon. He's like, Simon, listen, what this woman did was amazing. He says to Simon, Simon, I came into your house and you didn't give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and she wiped them with her. That's the rap translation, She wiped them with her hair. He says, you did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered the room has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she poured perfume on my feet. All of this was a sign of respect and a sign of love and a sign of gratitude. Simon wasn't doing any of this. See, this is the brilliance of this scenario, is that Jesus is comparing two people, Simon and the woman. Jesus is saying, hey, both of you are approaching life in a different way. As I started thinking about this story, I started realizing this reminds me of another story Jesus told. Think about this a second. Do you remember the story Jesus told about the two sons? And one of the sons was like, I'm through with all this. Like, I wish my dad was dead so I could just have his money. Not a cool thing to think about your parents, but he told his dad nonetheless. Got his inheritance, went off and just wasted it away, partied it away. He ends up to where life had gotten out of control. He was eating what the pigs were eating and he thought to himself, it dawns on him, people that serve my dad have it better than this. I'm gonna go home and at least ask if I can be a servant. And he does. And he thought the dad was gonna guilt him or lecture him or make him earn his way back, and the dad doesn't. The dad just stands there and says, oh, my son, he's back. I love you. I'm so glad you're back. And he throws a robe on him, puts a ring on his finger, and throws a party. This is what he does. Now, there's another person in the story, the older brother. And the older brother, he looked at all this and was like, that's not right. And he tells his dad, well, actually, he hears the dancing from far away. I love that part. He goes and tells the dad, Dad, I've been with you this whole time and you've never once thrown a party for me. How could you do this? Oh, by the way, do you not know what our brother has been doing? The dad knew. The dad knew it all. See, what do we call that story? We call it the story of the prodigal son, but it's really a story about the two sons. It's a story about the woman and Simon. It's the same story, but the hero of the story is the loving father. The hero of the story is that God looks past our wrongs, that he forgave our wrongs, and that he loves us anyway. And he did the same with the younger brother as he would have done with the older brother. But Simon missed that. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to associate with? For me, I would just rather associate, as crazy and as weird and as it seems wrong almost, I would rather associate with this woman. And what's hard about your situation and situations that I have in my life is that the younger brother, he repented. It says that he turned around and came back home. The person that you have a hard time loving, maybe they've never repented. This is what's difficult. This woman, she was at least at the party pouring perfume on Jesus' feet. The person that you have a hard time loving, they have not done anything like that. And for all we know, the night before, we don't know the whole story, but maybe the night before she was out. Maybe that night she was gonna go out. How did Simon view her? Maybe he wanted her to go back out that night. Isn't this disgusting? But sometimes we actually want the people that are hard to love to continue to mess up their life because it confirms our narrative about them. It makes us feel legitimate in the way we feel toward them. Maybe Simon felt the same way toward her. But there's another contrast going on, right? There's Simon and there's Jesus in the way they viewed this woman. Which one do we want? I mean, one of them treated her with kindness and one of them didn't. One of them loved her well and one of them didn't. Jesus is gonna tell us why. He says to Simon, he says, therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven as her great love has shown. She has been forgiven much. That's why she loves so lavishly. He says, I've already forgiven her. See, you see her as flawed, but I see her as forgiven. You see her as a failure, but I see her in her future. Jesus saw her full of hope, hoping that maybe this is the day where she turns it around. Simon saw her as, oh, she's just posing. She's lying. This isn't really her. Watch, follow her tonight. See what she does tonight. I guarantee you she's going back out. And Jesus is going, she might, but you're missing it, Simon. This is the way I want you to approach other people. This is the way I want you to deal with other people. And it feels so wrong. It feels irresponsible for us. But I'm just telling you, this was the way that Jesus dealt with people. There's this confirmation bias that we all live with, right? Where I give myself loads of grace, but in your case, I'm like, well, you're just a messed up person. Like, this is what we all do, right? You're like, well, I was late because traffic was bad. You were late, you need to be fired. You know, that's the way we live. And it's our way of trying to be the judge. But Jesus says, you're not. I'm the one who has forgiven her. And he says, whoever has been forgiven little loves little. If you've been forgiven much, you will love a lot. In other words, realize how much you've been forgiven. If you've been forgiven little, then you're just gonna love little. Hey, so you're a smart person. You're a thoughtful, intelligent person. Let me just ask you this question. What would you say to Simon? How would you consult Simon? How would you counsel? How would you advise Simon? But before we get there, let me just tell you the way this movie wrapped up. because something happened in the relationship between Via and Miranda. In fact, something happened in the way I viewed Miranda. I saw more of the story. I saw more of her story. See, they reconciled. How did they do this? I mean, this is the way their relationship moved to, is that eventually Miranda was back in the fold. She became almost part of their family again. And here she is on Christmas Eve, it seems, taking a selfie with the family. Well, what we learned is in this beautiful little overture, this beautiful little narration where Miranda says, see, I wasn't a good friend to Via, but this is why. My dad all of a sudden is super busy with his new wife, who was his old boss. Oh. And my mom is busy not being able to get over that. And she's drinking a lot. Oh. And I got a job at a summer camp because I didn't want to have to go home. Oh. And then I saw Via's audition for the play, and I remembered how intimidating she was because of how cool she is. And I just thought, I don't have it to be her friend. Like, who do I think I am? And so I just withdrew. I didn't know what else to do, but I just withdrew, and it wasn't right, and I wish I had done it differently. And now I feel terrible because I wasn't there for Augie, and I could have helped him. Maybe he could have actually helped me, but I sure could use some help right now. And then all of a sudden, when I heard that, I was like, well, I mean, Miranda, if I'd have known all that, like, I love you now, girl. Like, I wish I could give you a hug. Like, I wish I could tell you, like, it's gonna be okay, and tell you, like, hey, life's not all about pass fail, and it's a journey, and we're just all trying to get better, and we've all had bad days, and all of us have gotten messed up at a summer camp. And I meant messed up, I just mean like, all of us have, like, gotten misaligned at a camp or something, and you came back, and you're like, I don't know, and we've all been there, Miranda, I get you. That's the way life works, right? So let me ask you again, what would you tell Simon? I mean, what I would tell Simon, thank you for asking. What I would tell Simon is I would say, Simon, understand her battle and you'll learn how to love her better. Go do the work to understand her battle and you'll understand how to love her better. Maybe in your case, understand their battle so you can love them better. Understand his battle so you can love him better. This is not easy to do. Be kind, for everyone is fighting a hard battle, but kindness begins when you begin to understand the battle. So understand more of the battle and you'll learn how to love them better. Why? Well, because we all know this, but I don't know who said this. This is one of my favorite lines. Hurt people, right? For someone who likes wordplay, this is amazing. But it's true, right? I mean, hurt people. That's the way life works. If somebody's hurting you, it's because they've been hurt somewhere else. It's probably not personal. They just don't know what else to do because they're hurt. And so in order to gain understanding, we must not only find the hurt, but we gotta feel the hurt. Go on a voyage, go on a conquest and say, I'm going to find this hurt. I'm gonna turn up the curiosity and I'm gonna find where the hurt is and I'm gonna feel the hurt so that I can understand the battle, so that I can be kind. And if all of this is too hard for you, if all of this is like, I don't know that I can do this, maybe you need to have a confrontation. We've got this intern this summer, his name's Chris, and I was talking to Chris about all this stuff, and I was like, man, what do you say to people? And he's like, oh, they need to confront themselves. I'm like, what? He's like, oh yeah, they need to confront themselves. I'm like, that is a great thought. See, I love confrontation. And so the idea, that's sad, but I kind of do. And so the idea of getting to go talk to him and have this confrontation, I'm like, yeah, let's go. But the truth is, who do I need to confront? Well, if I have a hard time wanting to understand their battle, I need to confront me. I need to have a confrontation with myself. Maybe you need to have a confrontation with yourself. Here's a couple questions to ask yourself when you sit down to confront yourself. Ask yourself this, self, what is keeping me from being kind to this person? Well, you don't really understand their battle. Okay, well, let me ask you one more question, self. What is keeping me from even wanting to know their battle? Some of you don't even want to know. You've never even let yourself want to know. In fact, you don't want to know because you know what'll happen if you know. You're going to have to be kind to them, and you don't want to have to do that. We would rather be the judge, just like Simon. We would rather sit in the seat as the judge and be able to go, that person's wrong, therefore they get put in timeout. That feels better than, well, I mean, she did have a tough upbringing and that's a hard situation. See, that's not the way a judge thinks, that's the way a doctor thinks. Doctors look at people and they still assess the situation, right? But they got to find out, how did this person get into this situation? Tell me more about your family past. Tell me more about your heritage. Tell me about your habits. Yeah, okay, well, maybe you do have some bad habits, but I'm not gonna lecture you on the habits right now, but I gotta know about them, but I'm trying to find the hurt and feel the hurt so that I can understand how to help. That's what doctors do. So over this last school year, I've been trying to teach this to my kids. Drop them off at school, try to make them quote it to me. I'm like, all right, you're about to drop you off. Y'all ready? Be kind because everybody's at war, you know? I'm like, no, not at war. Like, what is it? Be kind because it's a street fight, Dad. You know, like, no. What is it again? Be kind because everyone is fighting a hard battle. And at first, they didn't understand it because they were like, what are you talking about? Like, who's fighting who here, you know? And so I'm trying to give them examples of it. And then one day, like the clouds parted and the sun came out and there was this moment that I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect. My son, our 7-year-old, he's telling me about this kid that's being mean to him at school. And I'm like, well, have you thought about what battle is he fighting? And he's like, no, because I hate him. Why would I do that? It's not what he said, but that's what he was thinking, you know? And I was like, I understand what you're saying, but let me just tell you, like, just think about it a second. If you could find out, like, what is his battle? And he goes, well, he did tell me one day that his parents were fighting a lot. And he told me one day that his parents were splitting up because he wasn't sure where he was gonna go home. And so, could that be his battle? And I'm like, I mean, that's a lot of people's battle, so maybe. And then he was like, you know, Dad, hurt people, you know? No, that didn't happen. Then he was like, can we stop talking about this? Did Mom pick up any Cheetos from the store? You know, like that's what was next, you know? Like it's not like we had this revolutionary life change. No, but to me, it was such an encouragement. I'm like, okay, you're getting it. You're starting to understand their battle. And when you understand their battle, you can understand and learn how to love them better. And that's what your Father in heaven has done for you. See, our ability to be kind, it's determined by what we see. And if you never open your eyes to look and get past whatever's annoying you, what's behind there, then you'll never really understand how you can love them best. I'm not saying what they're doing is right. I'm not saying the way you're feeling is wrong. I'm just saying that if you keep all that in you, it is not healthy for you. So why not? Why not choose to be kind and start by trying to find where the battle is? Because there is a battle going on. And as soon as you begin to understand it and learn about it, you will learn how to love them better.